Hello and welcome. In today's video we're going to be making this cute jack-o'-lantern inspired dragon. In this tutorial you can also adapt it to make whatever sort of dragon you like. You don't have to make a jack-o'-lantern inspired one, but we will be making this for the course of the video. If you'd like to change it up, you can just follow the same steps and just change the colour, change some of the features. But either way, I hope you enjoy the video and thank you for watching. So let's get started. So for this project we're going to be using the following things. I've got some pipe cleaners, which are also known as chenille stems. I've got some core wool and I've got some top wool or roving. I'm using orange, yellow and brown merino, but you can use whichever colours and whichever type of wool you prefer. I've got my felting mat, scissors and some felting needles. I've got a 30, 36, 38, 40 and a 42 gauge. I will also link in the description to where I got the needles and the wool from. We're going to be starting with the pipe cleaners. For this project I use a total of 3 pipe cleaners. So I'm just going to take one of them and I'm going to grab both ends and place them together. Then I'm going to gently squeeze all the way up to find the centre point. Then I'm going to open this out to form a little V. For the next step I'm going to be using my thumb as a guide. I'm just going to place the top of my thumb over the pointed end of the V and I'm just going to measure down to the first crease in my thumb. And I'm going to bend the pipe cleaner like so. And I'm going to flip it over, do the same again on the other side and bend at that first crease. Then I'm going to bring both sides of these not fully together, but just enough so that it forms a triangular shape. And then I'm going to hold it tightly and twist the rest of the pipe cleaner together. So this section will become the head and the rest of the pipe cleaner will become the body. We are going to be attaching another pipe cleaner later on, which is going to form the tail, but again we are going to do this a little bit later on. So now we're going to begin wrapping the head and the body. I'm just going to take some core wool and take a really thin strip. Then I'm going to grab the pipe cleaner and hold it with my non-dominant hand. I'm going to hold it at the very base of the head and also grip the wool. Then I'm going to start wrapping and I'm going to wrap it over in a diagonal angle and then wrap it again back down towards the bottom of the head. And then again from the other side of the bottom I'm going to wrap it up and around. And I'm just going to keep doing this until we reach the end of the wool. Then I'm going to felt this down so that it holds its shape. If you find it's getting too thick, then you can of course pull off some of the excess wool. This. Now you may or may not be able to see the pipe cleaners underneath, it just depends on how thick you wrap the wool. But either way it's not an issue. So now what we're going to do is take the very end and just very gently point it down, just very slightly, like so. Now this is going to form the top jaw, then we're going to build up the head and then we're going to add the bottom jaw underneath. So we want it pointing down, just like so. To start creating some more shape to the head, we're going to take some more core wool, just a little chunk. Then we're going to start rolling it up, but I'm going to roll it in a diagonal angle, just so that it forms a more triangular shape. Just going to felt that down a little bit. Then the end that's slightly thinner, we're going to point towards the nose and felt that down. Then we're going to curve up the rest and felt that down as well. Then you should have a shape that looks similar to this. So I'm going to continue felting this. And when that's been felted and more compressed, you should have something that looks similar to this. So it's now starting to take shape. What we're going to do next is we're going to add some cheeks to the dragon. So again, I'm going to take a really small amount of core wool. If you're worried about getting them even, then you can take 2 pieces that are roughly the same size, so that you can make sure the cheeks are even on each side. Then I'm going to take one of these pieces and I'm just going to roll it up. Again, I'm going to felt it down on the mat just a little bit so that it stays together. Then I'm going to take this, place one end about halfway down the face, felt that down. Then I'm going to take the other end and just sort of bump it up and felt it towards the back of the head. Then you're left with this big bulky shape. So now what we're going to do is we're going to continue felting and compressing this down, and it's going to become nice and rounded, which is going to form the cheek. We're going to repeat the exact same process for the other side. With both cheeks added, this is what it's looking like so far. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a larger needle. I'm just using a 36 gauge. And I'm going to very carefully felt over just the same spot, and I'm going to start making some indentations where I want the eyes to sit. Now I typically do them just where the start of the cheek is, and then just a little bit up into the head. So I'm just going to keep felting over the same spot and do the same on the other side. And just make sure I've got them lined up. Hopefully you can see where the indentations are. I know it can be a little hard to see on camera sometimes, but that is just where I want the eyes to sit. So now we're going to be adding another pipe cleaner to create the tail. So on the end of this one, I'm just going to open up the 2 end pieces, and this is just going to help attach the other pipe cleaner. Place that down to one side. Then I'm going to grab another pipe cleaner, and just like we did before, I'm going to fold it in half and find the centre. But this time I'm just going to twist it all the way down . And then the 2 pieces at the end, we're going to interlock them with the 2 pieces on the other pipe cleaner Then I'm just going to twist them all together to attach it to the body. There's no particular way to twist them, I've just twisted them all together. They're all in different directions, but that is on nice and securely. So where that join is, where you've just put them all together, I'm just going to curve the end of the pipe cleaner just so that it shows me that's where the tail is going to be. We're now going to start adding some bulk to the body. So I'm going to take some more core wool and I'm going to hold it down. Then I'm going to begin wrapping all the way down to where we joined the pipe cleaners together. Then when I reach the end, I'm going to start and take the wool back up the body. Then I'm just going to felt this a few times so that it holds its shape. Then just take a look at your dragon's body and make sure you're happy with it. Of course, this is a dragon, there's no right or wrong, so if you want to extend it or shorten it, that's entirely up to you. But once you're happy with the length of it, then we're going to create a little bit of bulk for the top of the body. So I'm going to take some more core wool and I'm going to fold it up like so. I'm going to give it a few felts on the mat. Then I'm going to very gently stretch out the ends. Place one end not right behind the head, just a little bit further back than the back of the head, and felt that down. Then I'm going to stretch it out and felt the other end down. Then I'm going to continue to felt this until it's all compressed and nice and firmly felted. And here's how it's looking. I actually want to add a little bit more bulk to mine, so I'm just going to take a very thin strip of core wool and just go over it one more time. And just felt it down again. So I'm now quite happy with how the body's looking. Before we move on to doing the tail and the legs, I'm going to start working on the head again. So we're going to be adding the eyeballs. So for this I'm just going to take some yellow wool. I'm just going to roll it up into a little ball. Then I'm going to felt it down on the mat. Just a couple of felts so that it holds together. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to place it into one of the indentations that we made earlier. I'm going to felt this on. I'm going to keep felting. You can switch to a smaller needle as well, and using the smaller needle will help to firm it up without changing the shape too much. So I'm just going to keep felting this until it's nice and firm, and then I will repeat the same steps for the other eye. And with both eyes felted on, this is how he's looking so far. So now we're going to be adding some colour, we're going to be adding some orange. So I'm just going to take a small piece of the orange wool, then I'm going to fluff up the fibres so that it's easier to felt with. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to very carefully roll this up and then place it on the mat and lightly felt it. And then this is going to go over one of the cheeks, starting at the nose. Just felt that down, then curve it around all the way to the back of the head and felt that down as well. Then we're just going to continue felting until all this is nice and firmly felted down. Just working around the eyes and tucking that wool in underneath. And then we're just going to repeat the same again for the other side. So now both cheeks have been felted on. We're going to be adding some more colour to the head. So again, I'm taking some of that same orange colour. I'm going to fluff up the fibres. But this time, instead of rolling it up, what I'm going to do is place it on the mat and I'm going to felt straight down the centre. Then I'm going to felt in a diagonal angle on both sides. So starting at the centre, at the top, and working my way out towards the bottom. Then I'm going to fold over the edges. This doesn't have to be perfectly neat. It's just going to give us a rough triangular shape. Carefully lift it from the mat. I'm going to flip it over so that it's nice and fuzzy. Then I'm going to place that with the point between the eyes and towards the nose. Felt that down. Then I'm going to follow the shape around the eye and felt that in as I go. And then the end here is going to come towards the back of the head. I'm just going to flip that over and do the same on the other side. So following that natural shape and tucking it in around the eyes. Then bringing the back towards the back of the head. Then I'm just going to felt all of this down. We're now going to be creating the bottom jaw, which is nice and simple. So we're just going to take some more of the orange wool, and again we're going to felt it straight down the centre and then felt 2 diagonal lines creating a triangle. You just want to make sure that it's about as long as the head. Then once you have your triangle, fold over the edges and felt that down. I'm going to felt it a little bit more towards the point on this one. And then I'm going to very carefully lift it up from the mat. Then I'm going to grip it nice and tight and just pull away some of these excess fibres at the bottom. Then I'm going to flip over the dragon's head, line it up, and then I'm going to begin felting this down. So the point I'm just going to sort of pull up and tuck in and felt that down, and then just felt all the way along the edges. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now I'm just going to continue felting until this is nice and firmly felted on. So now we're going to work on the top of the mouth and the nose. So again we're going to be using the orange wool. I'm just going to fluff it up and I'm going to lay it out on the mat. And this time when we're felting, we want to make sure that it's long enough so that it covers from eye to eye around the front of the nose. So you can take kind of a pipe cleaner and just use that as a rough measurement. So I'm going to place it around one eye, bring it around to the other one, and then this is as long as I need the wool to be. If it's a bit longer, that's perfectly fine because we can trim it down. So I'd say that's ideal for what I'm looking for. Then I'm going to start felting this down, just very lightly at first. Felt it straight across the middle. Then I'm going to fold it over in half, just like so. And I'm going to continue felting, focusing mainly on the straight edge. The bottom side of it, we want it to stay nice and fluffy, but the straight edge we want it to be really nice and firmly felted. So I'm going to felt it a few more times and then very carefully lift it from the mat, flip it over and continue felting. So after lots of felting, this next stage is completely optional, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pair of hair straighteners I'm just going to very gently place the wool in between and just give it a few taps, flip it over and do it again. This just helps to really firm up the wool and also make it nice and smooth, ready for cutting. Again, this stage is optional, you can just stick to felting if you prefer. I just really like the effect that it gives at using the added heat. There we go. So next I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to neaten up the edge and just trim off all the flyaway fibres. And then it's time to start cutting the jagged edge for the mouth. So I'm going to flip it upside down, and in the middle I'm going to very carefully cut a triangular shape. Then I'm going to cut it out again, just next to that. I'm just being careful, I don't want to cut it too much because obviously once it's been cut we can't put the wool back. So I'm just being very careful to get the shape that I'm happy with. Same again on the other side. Then I'm just going to keep repeating this all the way down the strip. And with that now cut, I'm just going to hold it very carefully on the end that's being cut and pull away some of the excess fibres. And I'm now going to line it up with the centre point over the nose. I'm just going to fold it around to see how it lines up. And as you can see, this is a bit long, so it's going to need trimming. So I'm just going to follow up from one of the triangles and cut in a diagonal angle. I probably will need to take more off than this, but for now I'm just going to trim right here. And again I'm going to line it up with that centre point, and that's fitting much better now. So what I'm going to do is hold it nice and tight at the centre and just very lightly felt down around it, just so that it holds where it is, just like so. Then I'm going to fold these around, and again a few white felts just to tack it into place. And this is how he's looking with it tacked down. As you can see, it's covering up most of the eyes. So what I'm going to do is take my scissors again and just very carefully trim roughly where the eye is. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Just so that it exposes the eye a little bit more. And now I'm going to take a needle, and this excess wool over the nose I'm going to tuck it in and sort of bump it up, and I'm just going to felt all of this down. I'm also going to start felting around the eyes and just really tucking that wool in and making sure it's really well felted. Just going to switch to a bit of a larger needle. And for edges like this where it's quite blunt, what I like to do is very carefully take the needle and just fuzz up the edge and then felt it down. I'm now just going to felt over all the jagged edges and make sure they're really defined, and also shape them to how I want them to sit. So the end piece here, that's near the eye, I'm going to felt along, and this is going to create the smile. Then I'm going to felt in between those jagged edges to really define those points. Same on the other side. Following along with that edge, I'm going to create a smile. And then just felt it all down and make sure it's nice and defined. You can also add some more definition by adding a darker colour. In this case I'm going to be using a little bit of brown. I'm just going to take really tiny amounts. I'm just going to line it up just underneath the mouth, and I'm going to felt it down to define those points. Just really take your time with this and just keep experimenting and see which way looks best for you. I'm just using a larger needle to very gently scrape the wool, just so it picks up some of those orange fibres and it helps to blend it together to make it look a bit smoother. So next we're going to be adding some more detail to the eye. So I'm just going to take a very tiny piece of the orange wool and I'm going to roll that up into a thin strip. Then I'm going to place this with one end at the back of the eye. Just felt that down, and I'm going to curve it around towards the front of the eye. Now this is going to create the eyelid, and this is where you can shape it and give it some expression. So I'm just going to felt that down, then I'm going to look at it and just figure out how I want it to sit. And of course do this for both eyes. So now we're going to add a little pupil to the eyes. So again, I'm just going to take some of that orange wool and just roll it up into a very tiny ball. Then I'm just going to place it on the eye and felt it down. Again, make sure to check it from the side and the front view to make sure you're happy with the positioning. And then when you are happy, repeat again on the other eye. Now it's really starting to take shape. So next we're going to be adding some nostrils, and again I'm just going to take a really small amount of the orange wool, just going to roll it up into a very tiny sausage. Then I'm going to place this on the nose. I'm going to place it on the top of the nose but towards the front. Then I'm going to felt down one end, going to grab the other end, curve that around to the same spot and felt that down as well. Then I'm just going to felt down the excess wool. Then you should see a natural crease in the middle. We're going to felt that down as well. I'm just going to switch to a bigger needle so that I can really define that. And that is how you create the nostril. So I'm going to do the exact same steps for the other side. And with the nostrils added, that is where we're going to leave the face for now. We will be adding some more detail later on, such as ears and horns, but for now we're going to be working on the body. So this is where another pipe cleaner comes in. We're going to cut this one into 4. So first I'm going to fold it in half and just cut it. Then I'm going to fold each half again and cut. And these 4 sections are going to become the arms and legs. I'm just going to take one of those pipe cleaner sections and I'm just going to place it towards the back of the body. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bend the pipe cleaner just so I get a sort of vision how I'm going to want it to sit. So this one of course is going to be the back leg. So I want it to curve around because it's going to be nice and chunky here. Then I want this part to be the ankle. I don't want it to be too long because we are going to be adding the toes separately, which is going to add some more length to the leg. So as you can see, it's just kind of like an S bend. And I'm quite happy with how this one is. So I'm going to take another pipe cleaner and just fold it in roughly the same way. I'm just using the first one as a guide. And these are going to become the back legs. I'm just going to take one of these and I'm going to start wrapping it with the core wool. So I'm going to start wrapping it where the ankle, the foot part is. I'm just going to wrap it nice and tightly. So I'm holding it nice and tight as I'm wrapping. And then once we've passed the ankle and start coming up to the leg section, we can start wrapping it a bit more thicker. And if there's any left over at the end, just go back down and keep wrapping. And now I'm just going to again check that with the body, make sure I'm happy with how it sits. and then I'm just going to give it a couple of felts just so that it stays exactly where it is. I'm going to take a little bit more core wool and just add it to the top section of the leg, just to make it a little bit more chunkier. And again, I'm going to felt that down. Then I'm going to repeat the same again for the other leg. Again, just like with the first leg, I'm going to start wrapping the foot, holding it nice and tightly. And then wrapping a bit thicker as I come around the leg. So we've got 2 of them done now, and again I'm just going to line it up with the dragon and make sure I'm happy with how it sits. They don't have to be perfect at this point, they just need to be done enough so that you can see the rough shape that you're aiming for. So now we're going to start adding a bit of colour. I'm going to take some of that orange wool and I'm going to start wrapping it around the bottom of the leg, so around the foot and ankle area. And just lightly felt that. I'm going to add a little bit more orange, but this time I'm just going to fluff up the fibres and felt it onto the mat. Just so that we've got a nice sheet of wool which we can now lift from the mat and place over the leg. I'm not aiming to cover the whole leg at this point, I just want to cover the bottom half, ready so we can add the toes. Just tucking all that wool and making sure it's really well felted. To make the toes, we're going to be using the same wool. You can make as many toes as you like per foot, but I like to do 3 on each foot. So I'm going to take some more of that orange wool and I'm going to roll it up to create a little sausage. I'm just going to felt it down and roll it again and felt it. I'm just going to keep rolling and felting so that it holds its shape really well. Don't forget to felt in the ends as well. And I'm going to make 2 more of those. Then once you have your desired amount of toes, just line them up how you want them to sit, and then just felt them onto the mat, just very lightly, felting the end of the toes. Then take some more of that orange wool, just fluff up the fibres, and then felt that over the bottom of the toes as well. Of course, keeping the top end of the toes nice and loose so that they're all separate and individual. And now you should be able to lift it from the mat, and this should all be attached together. I'm just going to flip them over and felt them on the underside as well, just so that I know they're nice and firmly attached. And now we're going to place them over the foot. So what I'm going to do is place it on top of the foot, and I'm going to curve the edges around and felt them down. Same on the other side. I'm going to curve it around and felt it down. Then I'm going to felt on the top and just do lots of felting to make sure they're really secure. This can be a little bit fiddly, so I'm just going to bend the leg back so I can see a bit better. And to help bring this all together, I'm just going to create a small sheet of wool. So just fluffing up the fibres and felting it on the mat. Then I'm going to lift this up and place it underneath the foot. You can see here where it's been attached. I'm just going to cover the top of that up and bring it down the foot and felt this down. This will help it blend in any harsh edges. And there we have our first foot. So I'm going to repeat this again for the other leg, and then we will attach them to the body. So the two back legs are now finished and ready to attach to the dragon. So we're going to take the dragon and just sort of figure out what position we want the dragon to be in. I want mine to be lying down, sort of curved around. So I'm just going to take one of the back legs and I'm just going to position it on. And once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to felt it down. Don't worry about it looking perfect at the moment. We are going to be adding some more wool to bulk out this area. At the moment we just want to make sure it's nice and securely on the dragon. So same again for the other back leg. Just going to position that where I want it to go and felt it down. Once you're happy with the positioning and the legs have been felted on, we're now going to bulk up the top of the leg. So I'm just going to take a nice chunk of core wool, going to roll it up and felt it on the mat. You'll notice when I pick this up that it's not overly thick, it's just nice and spongy. I'm going to place this over the leg and just felt it down on one side, and I'm going to fold it over and up the back, so it's going over the leg and up the back of the dragon. And then it's created this rounded shape here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use that shape and keep felting around it until this is all nice and firm. And that's just added some nice bulk compared to the other side. So we're going to repeat the same steps and add some bulk to this side as well. Next we're going to start making the arms. So for the arms I like to do it a little bit differently. Instead of just shaping it how I want it to go, what I like to do is measure the foot roughly from where the pipe cleaner ends all the way to the ankle, and then I'm going to fold it, and this is going to be the length of the arm. And then I'm just going to place it a little bit lower than the head and measure to the top of the body. And I'm going to trim off this excess pipe cleaner here. Then I'm going to do exactly the same with the other piece and just measure it up roughly with the first one. And again, trim off that excess pipe cleaner. And this is going to be our arms. So just like we did with the legs, we're going to start wrapping them with core wool. Now we've got both arms. From here they're just made in exactly the same way as the feet, so we're going to cover the bottom in orange and then create the toes. And we're going to do this for both arms. We've now got both arms finished, so we're going to position them on the body. I'm just going to find where I want them to sit, and as you can see here the shoulder is sticking up a little bit, so what I'm going to do is bend that back, but if you feel it's still too long you can snip off the end, because you can just add some more wool over it to felt over and hide the edge of the pipe cleaner. But I'm just going to bend mine back and then felt it down once I'm happy with the position. Going to do the same again for the other arm and felt that down as well. So now we're going to take a little bit more core wool. I'm just going to take a really small piece and just roll that up. Then we're going to place this over the two arms and we're going to create the shoulders. So I'm just going to felt down one end, felt down the other. Then I'm going to felt straight down the centre in between the arms. And then this excess wool here, we're just going to felt around the top of the arms. But I'm going to pay a lot of attention to the centre line and really felt that in so that it stands out. I'm going to take another small piece of core wool, and again I'm going to roll that up and I'm going to place it over the neck just so that it closes this gap here. So I'm just going to place that over, start felting it down. Don't worry if your core wool goes into the back of the head. That is absolutely fine because we're going to be covering with more orange anyway. I just want to smooth out that gap that was in between the head and the shoulders. And again, going back to the core wool, we're going to start bulking out the tail. So I'm going to grip the dragon and grip the wool at the base of the tail. Then I'm going to wrap it around nice and tightly all the way down to the end of the tail. I'm just going to felt over this. I'm going to go over it again from the base of the tail and work my way down to about halfway. So again, I'm going to grip it at the base and start wrapping. This time it doesn't need to be as tight because we're just thickening up the tail. So again, going down to about the halfway point, then just smooth off that excess wool. And just check how it's looking to see if you're happy with how it is or if you want it to be thicker. Just felting down that end so that it holds its shape. Looking at this, I think I want mine to be even thicker at the top end here. So to keep adjusting it, just keep adding wool until you're happy with it. I'm just going to go down the tail with the felting needle and just smoothing it out a little bit. Make sure all that wool is nice and tight. I'm just going to take one more piece of core wool and roll that up. Then I'm going to place this up the back and then down the tail, so it connects the two together and makes it nice and smooth. Just felt that down. So I'm now quite happy with the tail. I'm just going to check the rest of the body to see if I want to make any adjustments. I think I'm going to add a little bit more wool here in the belly area and just make that a little bit chunkier. So I'm just going to take a small piece of core wool And I'm going to fold it down at the top, fold it down at the other side. Then I'm going to place this over the belly, bring it around, felt down one side, bring up the other side, and felt that down as well. You can already see that's added a bit of chunk, so now I'm just going to keep felting this down so that it compresses more. It's now time to start adding some colour. So taking that orange wool again, I'm going to cover the back and the sides in orange, but the belly I'm going to do yellow. So we're going to start with the orange wool, and I'm going to fluff up the fibres and felt a sheet. And we're going to use this technique to cover the entire dragon. Carefully lift it from the mat, place it over the dragon and felt it on. We're going to continue using the same technique to cover the rest of the dragon. So we're going to cover the back end and the tail, and we're going to do the belly afterwards. So now that the body is covered and the tail, we're going to be adding some yellow to the underside of the belly. So again, we're just going to use the same techniques and make a little sheet of wool and then felt it straight on. So now that we've got the yellow on, I'm going to go over the belly and add some little tiny strips of orange. And I'm just going to repeat this all the way down the belly. So I'm just going to felt that down, straight across. And do the same again. Get another small strip of orange. Place it across and felt it down. So here's how he's looking with all his stripes on his belly. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of orange in between the orange and the yellow, just to give it a bit of a smoother blend. So I'm just going to take a small amount of orange wool and I'm going to fluff up the fibres. Then I'm going to place that directly over between the yellow and the orange and just felt that down. It just helps to give it a more natural blend, and then we're going to do the same again on the other side. So here he is, and he's starting to look very cute now. So I think it's time to give him some ears. So for this we're going to be using orange wool again. Just fluffing up some fibres. Then I'm going to lay them out on the mat. I'm going to felt straight down the centre and then felt at a diagonal angle on either side. So starting at the top centre and work my way down and out, and same again on the other side. Then we're going to fold over these sides and felt them as well. Then we've achieved a nice triangular shape, so we're going to keep felting this and then we're going to lift it from the mat very carefully, flip it over and felt it again. Now we're going to continue felting this until it holds together really well and it's nice and firmly felted. And I'm just going to check it's the right size by folding it in half. Then just placing it against the head to see if I like how it sits. And I'm quite happy with this, so now I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow to the inner ear. Just very lightly felt that down and flip it over, and then you can really felt it in well. And you can see some of the oranges come through on the underside, and this just helps to blend the yellow in a little bit better. I'm just going to keep felting that. Then you can see here where it's all fuzzy, I'm going to take the scissors and just trim that down again. And back to folding it in half. I'm just going to very lightly felt that down at the end, just enough so that it holds its shape. Then I'm going to repeat this again for the other ear. So we've got both ears done, so now we're going to position them on the head and just find out where we're happy for them to sit. And then once you're happy with that, just felt it down. I'm not felting it fully, I'm just felting it lightly for now, just in case I want to change the position once they're both on. And I'm going to do the same with the other one, just position that. Check I'm happy with where it sits, and then felt it lightly. Then once you're happy with the positioning of both the ears, you can go ahead and felt them down firmly. I've just removed my felting mat so you can get a little bit of a better look, because the camera wouldn't focus on his face. But here's what he's looking like so far. So next we're going to be making the horns, and to do this we're going to be using the brown wool. So I'm just going to take a small piece, then I'm going to begin rolling it up into a little sausage. And I'm going to start felting it down. Now I want the horn to look like a pumpkin stalk, so I don't want it to be pointed, I want it to be quite blunt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue felting this little sausage, and I'm going to rotate it and do that again. Keep felting and rotating to keep it nice and rounded. Then one end I'm just going to felt down so that it's nice and flat. I'm just going to keep felting this until I'm happy with the size and the shape. I'm quite happy with the size of this now, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to curve over slightly. So I'm just going to take the needle and I'm going to keep felting in the same spot over and over so that it folds naturally. Then I'm just going to lift it up from the mat and just neaten it up a little bit. And here's how it looks now. So I'm just going to hold it very tightly and just pull off some of the excess fibres at the bottom. Then I'm going to position this on the dragon's head and figure out where I want it to sit. Then once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to felt it down. And to make it look even more like a stalk, I'm going to add some very, very tiny lines coming out from the stalk. So I'm going to use a very, very tiny amount of the brown wool. And just felt these so it looks like they're coming out of the stalk. And this is how he looks with those details added. I was going to add a second horn, but I think I'm quite happy with just the one. But of course if you want to add two to yours, then go ahead and do so. We're going to be working on the wings next. So for the wings, I would recommend either drawing or printing out a small template on some paper. And then we can use this as a guide to get the shape correct. I'm just going to take some orange wool and I'm going to start fluffing it up and laying it out on the mat. Now I want to make sure the section of wool that I've got is large enough for the template to fit on. And then once you're happy with that, we're just going to felt it down a few times. And if it feels a bit thinner in some places, you can always go ahead and add a bit more wool. So now we're going to place the template onto the wool and we're going to trace around it using a larger needle. I'm using the 38 gauge. I'm going to very carefully follow the outline of the template and felt it down. Then when you remove it, you should be able to roughly see where that outline is. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to fold over the edges so that it folds in and stays roughly the same shape that you've just traced. Now some of the edges might be a bit blocky, they might not be as curved, and that's completely okay because we're going to curve them a bit more anyway. Just following those outlines. Same at the top. I am felting still quite lightly at this point because I don't want to felt too much so that it sticks to the mat. And again, folding it over. I'm just going to line it up again with the template. As you can see, it's not perfect, but it has given us that rough shape that we're looking for. So I'm going to switch to a smaller needle. This is the 40 gauge. I'm just going to felt it a few times. Then I'm going to very carefully lift it from the mat. I'm just pulling it very slowly so that it doesn't misshape too much. Flip it over and continue felting. I'm going to keep checking back with the guide just to make sure that I'm on the right track with shaping, and I'm going to keep felting, keep checking, and just make sure it really firms up. So once you're happy with the rough shape, we're just going to neaten up the edges. So to do this, I take a piece of cardboard and that's just folded in half. I would definitely recommend using finger protectors if you have them. I just personally am not a fan of them, but if you do have them, I would definitely recommend using them. I'm just going to sandwich the wing in between the cardboard. I'm just going to use my 40 gauge needle and very gently start poking the wool down. I'm just using very light taps for this because I don't want it to get misshapen. Then I'm going to just move it along so that I can work on more of it. And I'm going to do this all the way around until the edges are nice and smoothed. So lining up the template with the wing here, I can see that I want to add a little bit more wool to these bottom points, and I also want to tuck this in a bit more. So to tuck it in, it's nice and easy. We're just going to continue using the cardboard and sandwiching it and keep felting it down. But first of all, I'm going to add a bit more wool to the 2 points at the bottom. I'm just going to fluff it up and just add that straight on. Flip it over, and I'm just going to follow that pointed shape and keep felting. going to sandwich it again so that I can bring these edges in. Then I'm going to continue doing this, and then I'm going to do the same again for the other spike, and then I'm going to continue felting and making sure all the edges are nice and smooth and tucked in where they need to be. So now I've got this to a point that I'm happy with, I'm going to add a bit more colour to the wing. I'm just going to take some yellow wool and just very lightly felt it onto the mat to create a sheet. Then I'm going to place this over the wing, and I'm going to start felting and just follow the shape of the wing. I don't want to cover the entire wing, I still want bits of orange to show through. Just following that shape. Then any excess wool you come across, just hold it really tightly and pull that excess fibre away. So now that the wool is roughly on there, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to felt it down from the back side. And flip it back again. I'm just going to keep very lightly felting it until I feel it's secure enough on the wing. So this next part is optional. If you're happy with the way that your wing looks, you can leave it as it is, but I'm just going to go over it again with a bit of heat just to really smooth it out and flatten it. I'm now just going to take my scissors and just go over all the edges and trim off all those fuzzy fibres. And now for some more detail, I'm just going to add some orange borders to the wing. So I'm just going to take a really small strip of orange wool, just going to roll it up a little bit, just felt it on the mat a few times just so that it holds together. Then I'm going to lay this out on the wing. And I'm going to felt it down. I'm going to do this again for this section here, one straight across, then I'm also going to add one along the top of the wing as a border. And here is what the wing looks like with those details added. So I'm going to repeat this again to make the other wing, but of course I'm going to flip it so it's facing the other way. So both wings are now complete and it's time to attach them to our dragon. I like to place mine just behind the shoulders, so I'm just going to line it up. So I want it so it's got the yellow side facing down. I'm just going to position it and figure out how I want it to sit. Then once I'm happy with it, I'm going to very lightly just tack it into place. Then I'm just going to take the second wing and place that on as well. Again, just seeing if I like how it lines up and just lightly tacking it down. So they've now both been tacked down lightly, so I'm just going to check that I'm happy with the positioning of them, and I am. I also want my wings to curve up a little bit like this, but what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to felt straight down the centre and just make sure the ends of those wings are really secure. Then I'm going to take the wing and just position it to how I want it to sit, and I'm just going to hold it in place with one hand, and I'm just going to take the felting needle and just start felting it more, felting it from the front and the side as well so that it holds its shape. I'm just going to keep doing this until it's really well felted, then I'll do the same again for the other wing. I'm just going to take a little bit more orange wool and fluff up the fibres. Then I'm just going to place this in between the wings and felt that down, just so it's got that little bit of an extra layer of protection, and also so that it helps smooth out the seams where the wings were joined. So here is the finished dragon. I think he came out pretty cute. What do you guys think? But as always, I hope you enjoyed watching the video,